Hey everybody, welcome to this week's version of OctoChat. We have Michael Levan, a dev advocate at Octopus, and Ryan. Hey guys, how are you today?
What's going on?
I'm not bad. How are you?
Good. It's Friday. It's always nice. I like this part this time on a Friday. Obviously, I'm based in Scotland, just outside of Glasgow, so it's definitely towards the end of my day. So yeah, good here. The sun is shining, which doesn't happen often in Scotland. So hey, life is good.
Awesome. Nice. Yeah, you're in the future, right? What are you? I think you're 5 hours ahead of me. So nice.
Yeah, it's almost the weekend.
Almost. Yeah, we're right there. You guys got anything fun planned for the weekend?
Oh, fun plan for the weekend. I've got some Zoom games with friends tonight.
Nice.
And then probably a lot of chores this weekend, cleaning up around the house and whatnot.
I hear you.
Yes. I'm actually, I'll be studying this weekend. I've booked my Azure Architect exam, my AZ303. So I think I'll be doing some Skylines Academy, Cloud Skills, Pluralsight, WizLab stuff. So yeah, not probably what you're after, but
No,
hey,
that's awesome.
it's still fun as well.
Yeah, no, I do the same thing actually. So like the way that I have everything with my son is I'm 50% of the time. So I have him 5 days one week, 2 days the next week, and it rotates. So the weekends that I don't have him, I'm usually doing the same thing. It's like I am studying, or I'm like catching up on videos that I need to record, or like YouTube stuff or courses or anything like that. So it definitely makes sense. But yeah, no, that's awesome, man. So the architect cert, you're when do you have that scheduled for?
The 2nd of September. So I'm looking forward to it because I've done so far this year. I've done the AZ 900 and the administrator exam about a month ago. So
Yeah.
the good thing with it, a lot of the stuff with the administrator exam is quite similar to the architect. It's just a deeper level of knowledge. So it's a good time to do it because I'm going to go do a few things this year as well. But you run your own training, don't you, as well, Michael?
Yeah. So I do have a few courses going on. I do have a new course that I'm going to be doing soon. I can't announce it yet because I haven't signed paperwork just yet. But yeah, so besides that, like I do free training as well. So my YouTube channel is around the idea of like learn to program easily. So what I'll do is I'll do like 7 to 8 weeks of a different language. So I did Python. I'm doing Go right now. I'm gonna do PowerShell next, and then I'm gonna decide on whether I'll do a new language or I'll go back and do one of the languages that I did before, but in a different way.
Cool.
So yeah. How about your YouTube channel is blowing up already?
Yeah, that's it's funny. Like I put it out because I wanted to brand it to like, stick a name because the YouTube channels are a bit random. So I put it on Twitter and Gregor Sooty, he retweeted it and suddenly I think the last time I checked it was 105. So I now have my own DevOps Derek YouTube channel. The embarrassing thing is I have zero videos. I do actually have videos, but they're all drone videos and not for public consumption.
Right.
Take from that what you will, but yeah, it's just stuff from trips and stuff like that I haven't ever got around. But yeah, I'm going to actually start my first Twitch and YouTube stream on Monday evenings at 8 p.m.
Nice.
So that'll be cool. I'm interested to do that. I'm going to focus on Azure and Azure DevOps. And try and do some bits there because it's funny because a lot of the stuff that I've been doing this week. So I've got a webinar next week where we're going to be talking about deploying microservices as containers on Kubernetes,
Nice.
and with that we're going to be doing it on Azure Kubernetes. So I've been doing a lot of learning this week on that because I touched on it before. You know, it's one of those things that I think everyone touches on it, but when you really start to use it, but yeah, so that's what I've been playing about that this week as well. So I'll probably do something there. I was thinking doing it all via the AZ CLI and doing live on the Twitch on Monday evening. So
That's
what you guys been up to this week?
Well, I've been doing more. So this week I've been doing some editing videos and then answering advice questions. Came off that Runbooks webinar from last week, and I've got a few things queued up to shoot. Other than that, more playing with Vagrant, trying to get my VM situation all situated, and then playing with SSH keys going across Linux. I haven't used Linux as a main like OS since university, so it's been a while. So relearning a bunch of Linux stuff.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, my buddy's doing something similar. I think we were having this conversation last week where it's like, the more you automate and that more abstraction that you have, you kind of have less of like those admin skills down at the OS level. And my buddy's studying for one of the Red Hat certs right now. Because of that, he's like, I want to like get those skills back because he was super good at it for a while. So yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of Go stuff this week with the Terraform Provider. So I'm gonna say this every single time that I talk about the Terraform Provider. Big disclaimer: it's not in beta yet. It's still very much alpha, and we're still very much still testing it. But I've been messing around with the client a lot this week. So essentially, the way it works is you have your Terraform Provider that you write for like the resources that you want to create and the data resources for like bringing data back and stuff. But it's kind of like I don't want to say there's a pre-made schema, but like if you Google it, like how to create a Terraform provider, and then you go and you look at like Azure's and AWS's and ours, like it's all done the same way. Like there's like I don't even want to call it a best practices. There's just a like a template almost. So that's pretty much like done. Like you really don't have to touch that at that point. So really what we're working on is the client. So the client is what talks to the API, and then the provider talks to the client. So it's like 1, 2, 3 in that flow. So we originally we hand rolled the client for the Go wrapper, but now we're looking at automating the creation of the client via Swagger. There's something called Go Swagger, which instead of like creating just YAML and JSON for you from the Swagger output, it'll actually create it all in Go. So it'll look at all your APIs and then it'll bring back all the data in Go, which is obviously really cool. And I never played around with Swagger too much before. Like I've worked on applications that had it, but like I didn't actually create anything with it. So I've been doing a lot of Swagger learning this week, which has been awesome. That and then been actually like a lot of people have been reaching out to me lately, which has been nice. So I've been helping a bunch of people this week. Just like random questions, like one really good one that I had was what's the difference between a cloud developer and a standard developer? So that was a quite interesting conversation. And then I also had the session this week with Skylines Academy. So I did one of their summer sessions and I recorded that this week, and we were talking about deploying resources to Azure using Octopus. So that's fun.
What is the difference between a cloud developer and a standard developer?
So this is the way that I explained it. One, I love giving this answer. No, I'm just kidding. I don't. It depends.
My favorite answer.
So essentially the way that I said in the person that asked me, she's a web developer. So this is the way that I put it. Let's say you have a web application and it's written in JS, right? Maybe a little bit of CSS and HTML and stuff. So you have this front end, right? Like you have this web page, and the code, it doesn't care where you're running it. You could be running it in an EC2 instance, in a virtual machine in Azure, on-prem, in ESXi, and Hyper-V, on your local host. Like it doesn't care. So in that case, a cloud developer and a standard developer, it's the same, right? The code's just the code. But on the flip side, let's say your front end application that you're working on, maybe it has a database. Maybe you have a database that you need to store whatever data, usernames, whatever, into some database. So there needs to be some connection string. But perhaps in your code, you're specifying that it's got to be an Azure SQL database, and you actually have that embedded in your code. Or even, like another example, C# app, right, where you're using the Azure Azure SQL namespaces, for example, and that's actually embedded in your code. Like that's a functionality of your code. Then in that case, a cloud developer versus a standard developer would just be somebody that's writing their applications for a specific platform. So that's essentially like the way I explained it. And I think honestly, it's the same. I don't think there's a difference. The biggest difference is that maybe you're writing your application to run on a specific platform. Like maybe you're saying that your backend services are going to be running in Azure Functions and that's it, versus like running on a virtual machine or something. So that's my take on it, at least.
So really the platform that you target. So, a few years ago, you would have said, I'm a Java developer, I'm a Node developer, I'm a C# developer, but cloud is like, it doesn't matter what the language is. I'm specifically targeting a cloud platform for my hosting.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I remember a few years ago, I was working on an application and it was a Java-based application with a JS front end, Java backend. And really all you actually needed to run the application was a SQL database and at the time, 3 binaries. So you could literally just run these Java binaries with like Java jar and then point to the location of the binary. So really with that, it's like it could run anywhere. It could run on a virtual machine. It could run in Docker. Like it doesn't matter like where it's running, So I think at the end of the day, like it's really going to depend on the application. But, I tell everybody, like, don't get too caught up in being like, oh, what kind of developer am I? Am I doing it in the cloud? Am I doing it on-prem? This and that. Like, the code is still code. Like, it's not, that's just what it is. So.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. I've been playing a lot this week with Kubernetes, and that's the perfect use case for that sort of scenario.
Yep.
Containerize it and then run it anywhere, because that's one of the things that I was looking at and playing about with the containers was really doesn't really care where it runs. It just, as long as it's got compute resources and connectivity, then yeah, it just goes. And that's kind of the future, isn't it? It's kind of where everything's going. But it's still funny. Like I still think it's you get these people and everybody talks about cloud, and that's great. I'm a big fan, but I'm still a huge fan of hybrid setups. Like I still find that that's the best way to go, and almost all in almost all ways, like some form of, if you're a startup that's been about the last few years, then cloud definitely. But if you're any sort of older, you still have that sort of on-premise infrastructure for that kind of baseline, and then obviously use cloud with some form of site-to-site VPN. So it's definitely it's interesting in how the shifting technology approaches them.
Derek, I got a question for you. You have so you've been working with Kubernetes recently. What challenges, like what have you come across that have been hard to figure out, or maybe different from what you're used to?
It's really interesting, right? Because like there's things that I'd done some training and touched on it before. But it was, for me though, it was the difference between containers and pods. I thought basically a container was a pod, but it's not. A pod is a collection of different services. So it could be 2 or 3 different containers, and then it could also be storage, and then obviously you get the network aspect. So like jumping into it, to be honest though, there is still a lot of, for me anyway, containers are still pretty much virtual machines. Like there's really, the difference is there's not that much of a difference when you get down to it, because really when you look at it, a node is just a virtual machine, and then like think about it like you'd have IIS, right? And you could have 2 or 3 websites. You could have maybe an API, a database. What you can do there is you're basically just abstracting the operating system away from it, and then just doing that. And that's the thing, is I thought it was this massive difference, but really it's just, you're basically taking the OS and all the kernel away from the application, and then just kind of run it in that isolated way. But it has been really cool. I can see how useful it is, because it's such better usage of compute resources. Because before, you think about it, like I run a Mac, but I've got a Windows VM. By default, there goes 4 gig of memory every time. You spread that over, say, something like 50 apps. There's 200 gig of memory that you can basically use just by kind of taking that away. So can totally understand the benefit of it. And when you do scale, instead of having to install it 200 times, it's just like, pull down that container, run, forget about it. The interesting thing that I found though is from an application development aspect, it must mean, like, I think it kind of ties back into, yes, there we go. I point over to Michael. It must mean something different from a developer aspect. Obviously, I'm not a developer. I come from an operations background. And the thing is like there's a massive benefit there for things like stateless applications. But one of the things that got me was like things like spot instances. So you spin something up, but that can be terminated in 30 seconds. So like I wonder, and I'd love some input from you chaps, because obviously you're definitely stronger on the development side than I am. Like when you're doing things like retries, because like jobs can just terminate, what does that mean from an application development aspect?
So Kubernetes as a whole, I think that in my opinion, the biggest upside is the fact that you can, I don't want to say like deploy your application and not worry about it, but let's take a scenario of a virtual machine. So you have a virtual machine and your application is running. Whatever command you're using to run it, however it's running, whatever service it's running or process, let's say like that process goes down or that service goes down. Then you got to go in and like you got to put your sysadmin hat on and you got to figure out what happened. Oh, there's a memory leak. Where's the memory leak? Is it the server? Is it the application? Oh, why did the process randomly stop? Why did the service randomly go down? When you're working with something like Kubernetes, especially if you're working in it with like AKS or EKS or something where you're not rolling your own cluster. Let's say you're deploying an application and you use the kind deployment. Derek, I don't know if you've kind of went through this already, but essentially what it means is like when you have a kind with the deployment, and then you have a kind pod. So a pod contains one-to-many containers. A deployment contains one-to-many pods, which have many containers. The biggest difference there between a kind pod and a kind deployment is a deployment has self-healing. So from a developer perspective, it's really nice to deploy your application and be like, hey, guess what? If this thing goes down and there's no like crash back loop or something like that, or the image is bad, which you would obviously know through your QA and regression testing already, so it wouldn't even hit production, hopefully. You kind of have that like layer of abstraction where you don't have to worry about it. I guess like on the flip side for me, I mean, I'm with you with like still enjoying on-prem infrastructure and stuff like that. And I think that's where, like, if you guys have noticed the past few years, cloud is obviously becoming more and more popular. Containerization is becoming more and more popular. And the other thing that's coming with it is development is becoming more and more popular. Everybody's becoming a developer. Everybody's, in this space, whether you're scripting, like my development background, 90% of it has been automation, scripting, PowerShell, Python, JS, C#, like all that, but the automation process. So, when you think about it like that, and you think about all the on-prem stuff going away, and you don't need to put that sysadmin hat on anymore, it's almost like that's why everybody's going in the direction of the developer, because if everything's going in cloud and containerization, that on-prem stuff isn't needed as much. So yeah, I think it's like really going to all depend on the application, who's running the application, things like that. I think that's like the biggest difference in my opinion.
Yeah, so to add to that too, from like the application development standpoint, and this is something that Michael and I talked with a customer the other day on a call. It changes how you do certain things for your application. A big one is, where does the configuration comes from? If you're pulling that from a web config, a JSON file, some XML or YAML format, the instinct is to rebuild a container per environment, because you've got to have like a different file, right? When really you should look at moving those config values outside of the container into a database, into environment variables, or like whatever makes sense, because you don't want to build that container per environment and deploy like even if it's, the same code, it's still a different build per dev, per QA, per production, which is not a good pattern to follow.
No, defeats the purpose. Defeats the purpose of stages.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah, it's really interesting concept though. I do like the auto scale, and that the self-healing aspect. It's like, you get an application that crashes. Like traditionally with that IIS, app pull falls over. That basically, yep, cool, automatically just let's pull up another one and on we go.
Yep.
But yeah, it's been fun. It's definitely been a fun week learning about AKS.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I personally love AKS too. Like, I've hand rolled clusters before, just like raw Kubernetes clusters. And then I used EKS. And then once I found out about AKS, it's like 20 times better than any other solution out there. Although like GKE, like Google Cloud Platforms Kubernetes service, I mean, like it's obviously the best because Google's who created Kubernetes. So like that's like the best service that they even have. So their Kubernetes integration is like super super good too. But it's I think definitely like AKS and GKE, like they're big contenders. Yeah.
I really liked the Google dashboard or their UI for it, their portal for their Kubernetes engine. Like I really like that over the other two.
Yeah, they have like some really solid wrappers, and the SDK is good too. The CLI is awesome, so it's pretty easy to interact with it for sure. If you're not like a UI guy, like I prefer to live in the terminal, so it's definitely like a good SD. There's definitely good SDKs and wrappers and stuff for that as well. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm hoping that GCP becomes one of the larger contenders. I think they're definitely getting up there, but they're still ways away, unfortunately.
So, obviously, we had some news this week on config as code. It looks like the public alpha is going to be going on November. Really excited about this one. This is one that it's been. I think what's funny. I'm actually at Octopus 2 weeks. 2 years next week. And it's something that's kind of been about since I've joined as well. I think even before then, and I'm really excited about it. Config as code is something that's going to be you'll be able to do it in HCL. And what you're going to be able to do is still do your deployment process within the UI, but you're also going to be able to do it in code. So it's going to have the benefit of people who are more familiar with code and more comfortable there, and then also in the UI aspect as well. Because, like, for instance, obviously, there's certain things I like jumping on and doing the coding aspect for, but there's certain things I do. There are things that I like a nice clicker. Obviously, lots and lots of clicks, but really excited about this one. Obviously, we did initially have it penciled in for July, but it was still a little bit rough around the edges. So we're going to be this is going to be out in a public alpha in November, and we might be doing something for it. So it's really exciting. Obviously, one of the things, just to if you do want to provide some feedback, we do have community Slack. Go to octopus.com/Slack, and we have a config as code channel. So if you do want to find out more, but I'm really excited about it, guys. What about yous?
Absolutely, yeah. Listen. There's a lot of solutions out there right now from a CI/CD perspective that have these like code pipeline or these pipelines that are created with code and stuff. But let's be honest. Don't tell anybody this, but I'm not a big fan of writing my pipelines in YAML. It's okay, but
No,
but I don't want to write them in YAML or HCL or HCL. I want to write them in HCL. I don't want to write them in JSON. So like, I mean, the fact that like we're hitting the ground running with writing in an HCL. I mean, I'm a big Terraform guy, so like obviously I'm very opinionated with where I'm like, yep, that's the way to go. I think it's definitely awesome. I think another big thing for me is, a lot of times, like if there's a UI and a code way to do your pipelines, there's some functionality that doesn't work in both. or there's just like different steps that aren't in each or something like that. And it's really cool that with Octopus, we'll have it in both places. So like wherever you find it in the UI, it's going to be in the code too, which is actually rare, and yeah, I'm really excited. I remember my first interaction with pipeline code was Groovy because of Jenkins files, and
No, not a fan.
I'm smile and shake my head.
I've got similar feelings. It's like I like putting my configuration into a code file. I just haven't really like anytime like a YAML, like it's fine, it works, but it's like I don't like using it. I don't know why. It's like a personal preference. I know people out there do love YAML. Like I'm not saying anything bad against them. Like go enjoy your YAML.
Yeah.
I use it because for a lot of tools that's the only option. I do like HCL better. I do like even the idea of like who was it, Pulumi? Hopefully I'm saying that right, Pulumi, where they're like their idea is like let's do infrastructure as code using whatever language you like. I like things that offer that. I would relearn Python to write some pipelines as Python or even Go, learn Go to do that.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I've worked with Pulumi a little bit in the past, and yeah, and it is a really cool concept. The only thing, in my opinion, about the concept is that it's stuff that you could already do. So, like, what things like Pulumi and stuff are doing is it's allowing you to write Python code for your infrastructure. But if there's already an SDK in place, like you could already do that. The difference is like they just make it a little bit easier on you. But that's definitely something you can already do as well, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of like writing things in a language that is close to my main language. So that's why I've had a few blog posts on like using Cake or Fake for your build scripts because I come from a .NET background. Yeah, let me write my build pipeline or my build script anyway in C# or F#. But no, I'm super excited about config as code. HCL I think is a really good choice for that. It's people using Terraform will be familiar with it. I think it unlocks it does unlock like a lot of interesting scenarios and solutions that customers have asked for a while. Like one example would be, I make it all the way I create a release, deploy it to dev, deploy it to test, and then I go to deploy to production and it fails because my step is misconfigured. My script doesn't work on production for some reason. I have a fix. And I've already tested it like locally and we need to get this out immediately. There's not a good way to just like update your process and deploy that to production where now you could change your release to point to a new branch of your processes code and get.
Yeah, it's really nice. I think the thing I'm really looking forward to is how easy it's going to be to clone projects. Obviously, we've got that just now in the UI, but drop that down. You can even do obviously branching as well. So you can do like branch off, do a test one, and then pull it back in. And that's all. Again, I love the fact that it's going to be available in the UI and also, obviously from code as well, because it means everybody who. Because you do get people who just don't want to be using a UI, and you get people who don't want to use code, and that's cool. And I think that's where it's going to be. It's going to be awesome. And also, you're going to be able to do runbooks as well. There's going to be certain things you won't be able to model, like environments, etc. But we do have other ways of doing that. And Michael, you have a way of doing that just now, don't you?
Which way?
To model your environments and whatnot via Terraform.
Oh yeah. So in terms of like you're talking about the Octopus provider?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. So right now there's a bunch of examples out there. There's a PR out there right now. If you go to like the Octopus deploy GitHub, you'll be able to see that there's like a Terraform provider. And then there's a branch. It's called like, I think it's feature/examples, I'm pretty sure. And that's where like you can find a bunch of the examples going on right now. And you could do things like creating the life cycle, creating the deployment, creating the projects, the project groups. So yeah, there's a bunch of really cool stuff that you're already able to do with it. But disclaimer time, it's not beta yet.
And that's a good point. It's somebody pointed this out to me a few weeks ago. No, a few days ago, not a few weeks ago. We have docs on process and config as code because you can do it today with the API. You can script it using either Octopus.client with .NET language or raw API requests. It's a lot more work than putting together a Terraform script, but it's been an option, and there's pages on how to do it. So this is really just another avenue for somebody to go in and script out their Octopus configuration.
Yeah, I created like a little PowerShell wrapper. It's on my GitHub page that you can do a bunch of that stuff with as well. Because the API is super straightforward to work with. One of the easier APIs that I've worked with is Octopus's API. And I wrote like a really little wrapper for it. It does like the life cycles and the projects for you and users and stuff like that. So yeah, you could create your own, or there's like already a bunch out there, which is awesome.
That reusability though, it's just that's what's at for me personally. Just it's just that we do have tenancy, but sometimes they're just different enough just not to justify tenancy.
Yeah.
So it is really cool. It is really cool.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of cool stuff going on. Like I'm really just honestly super excited about config as code. I think one of the reasons why I'm really excited about it too is like exactly what you guys were saying with the branching and stuff like that. I mean, right now, like as developers, when we're writing any code, like if we're all working on code together and we're working on some different feature, I have a feature branch, maybe Derek has a feature branch, maybe Ryan has a hotfix branch, and we're bringing all those up and we're able to work together, and then we're able to eventually merge them into develop and then to master. And it's the same thing with your pipeline now. Like you can follow those same practices now, where you can, hey, if there's a new feature that needs to go into the pipeline, if there's a bug that needs to get fixed, then it merges into develop, then into master, and then you have your production code, just like we've already been doing it for a long time. And that's awesome to think about that we can now do that with, with config as code and with pipelines and stuff like that. Like that's seriously awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited for that. I think, in my opinion, like it also just because I'm so used to it, like it makes my life easier. I don't have to worry about clicking around in the UI anymore. I can simply write it as code, which is phenomenal for me.
And Runbooks as well. Runbooks is also going to be able to do that, Runbooks is my killer feature with Octopus. Obviously, Ryan and I have done a whole bunch of stuff with Runbooks, and being able to do that as code is awesome because it's code that you're running. So why not be able to configure it as code as well?
For sure. Yeah, no, I was actually talking about Runbooks on the Skylines episode this week, and the fact that like it's really for infrastructure and for developers. A lot of the solutions that are out there right now, it's like it's targeted towards developers. It just is the way the marketing is, the way that it's being presented to the public. It's targeted to developers, but with Runbooks, it's targeted to both. You're an infrastructure engineer, you're a developer, you can use it. It's built for both of you, which obviously makes everybody's lives a little bit easier. And not only does it make everybody's lives easier, but if you're an infrastructure person and you're like, man, I really want to break into this development stuff. I really want to learn more about continuous deployment and delivery and automation, stuff like that. This is the perfect way for you to jump into it. Like it's built for you. Versus trying to do a complete 360 and turn yourself into a developer in a day. You can start with Runbooks.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think the key thing with Runbooks though is working in operations for the best part of 20 years now. I loved it, but it was one of those things that you saw as, you were kind of you were the roadblock. And guys, I mean this in the nicest possible way. Please don't take offense. But you were, like there are heroes in operations, right? Like there's, I think we spoke about it last week with Brent, and and with that, I think what Runbooks is really going to be it's actually already great at is that self-service aspect. So it ties into that DevOps methodology where you enable people. You don't have to give them the production access, because that's always one of the biggest things, right? Is you're effectively the gateway to production. And I saw something recently was operations, you're more than just a password, right? And that really stuck in my head. I really liked that. And you are, like yes, you do have the keys to the kingdom, and that's part of your role. But the thing is like that you can take a bit of time. Like quite often, some of the more common requests you would get is, developers would ask for logs from production.
Yep.
Take out, like, hey, you can get that log, but hey, wait a minute, give me a couple of days, right? And I'll write a way for you to get that. Because the thing is, as well, is operations are awesome. And I'm quite lucky in that I had the opportunity to start using Git about 8 years ago, and start using all those tools like Octopus, because I'm on a release management. But sometimes it's about working smart and not hard. And enabling self-service is really going to allow people to get smarter at operations. Because let's be honest, these guys are, I've been there. I've been at 2 a.m. Something goes down again, and you have to get up, and you're just like, oh, like, I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go, be a truck driver. So like that, it's like, this is where Runbooks, it's there to help you, but it's also there to help developers. It's there to help project managers. It's there to keep your application steady, operational, and it gives you that easy automation. And you can go in, hey, do you want a database from production? Right. Rather than you sometimes being stressed and forgetting that database is personally identifiable information, cleanse the data, do the backup, cleanse the data, and then restore it to, say, something like test or even a developer machine. You can do that all within a single runbook.
Yep.
You would have to have some third-party tools, like Redgate have some tools there that you could do, that you could use. So what you're doing there is you're doing something that probably would have, you get a ticket, it's sitting at priority normal. You probably takes a couple of days.
Yep.
Then you go back, you put it in a location. The person comes back, says, I can't access that location. That's some ticket comes back. So it takes like 5, 6, 7, 8 different, to do this. Whereas do a single run, grab the artifact, restore, everybody's happy. You can get on with your day, doing the more interesting stuff, and the developer can go and get on with their day. So this is where, you are more than you definitely are more than just a password and a gatekeeper to production. Because, what are the alternatives there? Long tickets, you come in the morning, loads of people are standing at your desk. Because that's the thing with operations, is quite often it's who's shouting the loudest. And it's not always who has the real biggest concern. And I think that's where Runbooks really will help people, and particularly in the self-service aspect.
Yep, absolutely. And, it's the biggest thing too, like for me with Runbooks, is the simple fact that it allows you to have a smooth transition into a life of a developer or the life of a DevOps engineer or an automation engineer or something like that. It gives you that like smooth paved road of getting there and figuring out what that type of role is, versus that steamroll effect where it's like, okay, now I got to go in and I got to learn 5 new languages: Azure DevOps, Octopus Deploy, GitHub Actions, Terraform, Ansible, and all that stuff. Like, you could just get a nice paved road of it.
Yeah. Going back to Derek's point about, give me a few days to build this out. A lot of that comes back to the company, the organization, the division, the team, giving that space for those tools, those scripts to be built, to be put into a run book. Because if Derek, if you're just getting, hit with tickets like all day long, like I need this, I need that, people coming to your desk, you're not going to have a few days to go in. You really need somebody to give you that leeway. I remember working and I needed it wasn't even like production logs. I didn't need like a production database. It's like, I need a new Jenkins project. And I couldn't make it myself, which number one is like, let your developers make Jenkins projects. Maybe, I don't know. There's reasons for why that was done, but it's like I had to fill out a form, and then I had to wait for that form to go through the ticketing process. And I didn't know at the time that I filled it out, there was no like drop down. There was just like a comments thing. I had to ask specifically for like a Windows agent, and I didn't know that. So after a week, I got a Jenkins project with a Linux agent, which wouldn't build my project. I was like, oh no.
The thing as well with operations, and guys, please don't be offended, obviously, is the way the metric runs from an operations is often how many tickets you can get through, how many you can close, and also response time. It's not always on quality, and that's where sometimes there's issues. And it is like, oh, you don't meet the criteria, closed, and then you can't reopen the tickets. So you need to go through that. It's just like, oh man, like, because I've been at the other end as well. Like, obviously I transitioned into DevOps, so like that, I've been at both sides of those tickets, and no one's winning. Like the person in the operations isn't happy because they're trying to, they need to get through as many tickets, and then the person who's getting the response, they're not getting what they need. So really, no one's happy. Whereas if you just go in, have a button, do this run, obviously it's not going to be possible for everything, but as much as you can do from a self-service. And then what happens is the person who wants a resource gets a resource, gets on with their day, more productive, and the person who at the other end of things, they're dealing with less tickets as well, and they can actually probably look at increasing the quality of the tickets, and also further on, it's that kind of cycle of, that continuous improvement, and that's where it really helps. So yeah, no one's winning with these old approaches.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. If you're having weekly meetings where you have a PowerPoint up and you're showing everybody how many tickets you've closed that week, please stop doing that.
I was gonna say, Derek, it happens on the development side too, because I've definitely seen like metrics where it's like, look how many bugs Ryan closes. I'm like, well, let's look at how many bugs Ryan opened.
I always remember that T-shirt. It's like, like the 99 problems in the code. Like I'm at 129 bugs in the code. I need to get that T-shirt actually.
No, it's very true. It's I'm a firm believer 100%, and I will never change my mind on quality over quantity. I don't care how fast somebody does something. There's got to be quality in it. Like, it can't just be like, let's just make up this mythical deadline and push stuff out because somebody said that we need it at that time, but there's actually no reason why it's needed at that time. It's definitely quality over quantity, always.
You're basically paying that technical debt up front. If you cut corners, it's just going to come back to bite you. Like we were speaking about this last week, and it does. It's paying it forward, doing it right. Because it goes back down to that code. Oh, we need this. You're doing your sprint. It's guys, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I still have a funny thing about that. You can't sprint forever. Sometimes you need a nap.
Yeah, I brought that up with Teams 4. I was like, can we not call it a sprint? I'm getting tired, but it's just it's a naming thing. It's like, what's the other name for it? A scrum.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got an interesting self-service idea for you though, Derek. I think I've talked to Michael about this separately, just like in Slack chat. But let's bring together the idea of Runbooks, config as code, and the Octopus Terraform Provider beta, or not beta yet. I almost said beta, not beta yet.
I'm going to add a banner.
Add a banner, yeah. Just have it like pop up, not beta, and the idea of like having a separate like admin space for your Octopus instance with Runbooks that, a team, somebody I come, I'm like, our Terraform, oh, hey, it's very cool. Terraform Provider is not beta yet. So you come back, I come up, I'm like, hey, Derek, I need a new space for Octopus with these environments and some project stuff. And imagine having a runbook where you can be like, Ryan, go run this and fill it out. And it creates a space for me. It creates the environments and even maybe imports some common script templates or step templates that your company uses, our company uses.
Absolutely.
Like that would be really cool to bring like all those together into these self-service ideas.
That's the dream right there. You want to do that because we've got, I think as well, Ryan, you actually created a sample script that does like the dev test, does all your environments for you. So actually doing that isn't such a massive leap. Like that's the thing, because it is something, because spaces is still probably something that's underused, and having a runbook, new space, hey, because the thing is you can also add things like naming conventions. You could obviously pull in like Azure accounts and stuff. Obviously, you'd have to go in and maybe, I think some of the secrets would probably have to be configured manually. But like that, boom, go. You could probably even go and just create a new Azure subscription as well and link it back in, really.
Yep. At the end of the day, it's really just like creating your own orchestration.
Yeah.
You could, like, for instance, I've done something where I had an application and it was spinning up containers and running an EKS or AKS. And there was a bunch of Python code on the back end that was doing things like creating the secret. We were using Vault for secret storage by HashiCorp. So it was creating the secrets. It was putting them in Vault, all of those things. So it was like 1,000 lines of code to make the application pop up. But I was kicking off the whole thing, believe it or not, in Ansible Tower. It was literally, I just created my own orchestration. And you could have like thrown a front end on it if you wanted to and had it interact with Ansible Tower in the background. So yeah, there's so many different ways to do that too. And yeah, that's like definitely the dream. Like the dream, and we're there. Like the really cool thing is we're there. When you go to octopusdeploy.com and you click on launch me a cloud instance and that magical cloud instance pops up in a few seconds, that's it.
That's the dream, because looking at that there, it's a few more seconds. In all honesty, it's closer to 2 minutes. Yeah. But let's not brag. Let's be realistic. But the thing is like that 2 minutes though. You think that would have taken months before? Like getting all that. Like again, it kind of what we were saying last week. You have to buy the server, rack it, IP, and now 2 minutes. I was getting frustrated at 25 minutes. Now it's 2 minutes. It's like, and that's full Octopus. And then you add in that, and that 1,000-line of code that you're talking about, that's probably doing something, right? When you think about it, it would probably take another 2-3 months as well. We're like, hey, new project, new Azure subscription, new infrastructure, new environments, do everything this. And it's, yeah, okay, you might have to spend a week doing the code, but you just think how much more efficient, and it means that you get to the point, because it does all come back to like that NHS, like you see these IT projects and IT being seen as a cost center, when it's an enabler. And it is interesting, like how you can go and really focus, because you've seen these massive $1 billion, £1 billion projects just fall flat in the face because they just can't get off the ground.
Yep.
So anything you do that really just helps.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've been in this situation where like I would do something, maybe it took me 15 or 20 minutes a week, and I had to do it every week, and it was like, well, why don't we take out some time to automate this? Yeah, but it's going to take a week or two to automate it, and it's like, yeah, but multiply that 20 minutes times 6 months, times a year. That's where like the true power of automation comes into play. Again, quantity over quality, or I'm sorry, quality over quantity. Now I'm saying it backwards.
Quantity over quality, and Terraform Provider is beta. Speaking of self-service, and Derek, you mentioned spaces may not be as widely used. That's like another just good way to do self-service, because you have the concept of a space manager, where you could say, like, you don't even necessarily need to lock down a lot of that stuff. You can say, here, Ryan, here's a new space. You're a manager. Have fun, create your own environments, run your own scripts, do all that. The Terraform piece of that, of like spinning it, like preloading it with things, is just more convenience than anything else.
Yeah. Well, I said you could even have sample projects in there as well, for people. Like you can. Do you know one thing I was thinking there? A training space.
Oh yeah, sandbox.
You basically training space. Hey, here's an idea for Octopus. Create a training space for Dave, and then Dave can go play about in an isolated box and then delete it at the end of the day as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff when it comes to development and automation, and having the ability to move fast and not just thinking of the department as, like you said, a call center. It's the way to go for sure.
Automation for everything. Automation for everything and everybody.
Yep.
Peace.
Yeah. So what do you guys got going on next week?
Next week I'm manning the advice inbox and Slack channel for the next couple of weeks. So expect to get email responses and Slack responses from me. Maybe turn some of those into some videos. I like being, we call it QRF, quick reaction force, for our team. So anything that comes up in our advice channel, like I'll jump on that. There also somebody on our UK team will also be doing that. I think Mark the first week will be joining me in that effort. So I like doing that because I mine that for ideas for Ask Octopus. So I'll probably be taking some of those and recording. Speaking of, I'm going to do my plug now because this week's video actually came from our community Slack. It was a question in our advice channel, and I made a quick video. I had to resist all of my natural instincts to explain everything on the screen as I was going, but I managed to keep it less than 5 minutes in the explanation. So, and that should publish in about 40 minutes for anybody interested.
Sweet. That is awesome. Nice.
I love Ask Octopus, Ryan. Some of the stuff you do, I'm learning from it as well.
This question, I actually didn't know the answer off the top of my head. Like I knew the pieces, but I had never used them, or I'd very rarely used them. And it's the, I'll give you, if the viewers, our live stream watchers, a preview. It involves the each keyword in the variable substitution syntax. So you can actually iterate over values in variable substitution. And I just haven't used it a lot, but somebody had a question, so I spent a little bit of time figuring it out.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and that's it's a really good way to like get content as well. Like I'm doing the same thing. I'm really focusing on blogs more or less, and a lot of the stuff that comes into advice or the questions that get asked on the community Slack. That's what I'm turning into blog posts as well. It makes sense. Like if one person has the question, chances are other people have the question too. So it's always good to just throw that stuff out there, and it gives us ideas. Versus like us just making up our own stuff and hoping that people enjoy it. We're giving them what they want, which is obviously awesome.
Yeah, no, it is good. It is good. I like to go back to Ryan, what he was saying earlier on as well. QRF is like one of my favorite times. It's probably something, sometimes one of the most, because one of the most stressful as well, because you kind of get thrown into like that, like quite, you're like, oh, right, wait, what? And then you come up with these, like you see some of these really cool solutions that people come up with, and some of the questions, and you don't really think about it like that sometimes. And it is great because when you get in, because I think like some of the ideas that I come up with are that lands up improvement is also in docs as well. That you get people like, oh, wait a minute, because our docs, I'm a little bit biased. But our docs are world class, right? I think anyway. But we still have gaps there occasionally, and that's the thing. So QRF's awesome. So obviously, do reach out to Ryan. I'm not on QRF next week, so ask as many questions as you want. But next week I'm doing a webinar. I'll be doing a actually I'm on QRF actually next Thursday. So not next Thursday. No, I'm just kidding. I'm on a webinar with Sean Cessna next week. Sean's our resident Kubernetes expert in a customer success team. So next week we'll be doing a webinar where we talk about that microservices, containers, Kubernetes, and then do a hands-on demo using Octopus. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And then we'll post that video out afterwards. But by all means, if you go to octopus.com/events, we've actually got 4 webinars coming up. Just obviously don't want to take too much time up, but we've got one with Kubernetes next week. Then we've got AWS infrastructure and Java on the 2nd. I'm doing one with Raygun on the 16th, talking about real user monitoring in Octopus. And then at the end of the month, 30th, where we're going to do post-verification testing with Testery. That'll be with the CEO and owner of Testery. I'm looking forward to both of those. Something a bit different. And then we're going to be doing another one. Actually, Ryan, do you want to talk about that one in October?
Oh man, you put me on the spot. Which one is the one in October?
Runbooks.
Oh, we're doing Runbooks again. Okay, I was in that. That's too far away, man. I plan 2 weeks out. October. We're doing Runbooks Self-Service. Adam and I, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one.
I think
I'll
so.
be like, I think my third Runbooks webinar this year.
I love Runbooks. I would do them. To be honest, we could do them weekly, but let's
Yeah.
not get into that. That's too much. But no, it's really cool. What blogs you got coming up, Michael?
Oh man, so one of the blogs that I really want to write about is something interesting that Ryan and I heard about this week, where I want to talk about if you're moving from like something like Code Build to TFS, Team City, or if you're moving to like GitHub or something like that for like any type of builds. I really want to do one on. Well, actually, I just did one on testing your PowerShell code with Pester. So I want to do something on testing your Terraform code with Pester, because I read this really cool blog. I really want to give them credit. I just forget what it is off the top of my head. I really want to do something on like running your Terraform code, that testing, but using Pester, which is the PowerShell framework, because it's possible. So that should be really cool. The other thing too is I want to get some more Go stuff out there, because obviously the more I'm learning, the more I'm trying to push out there. So that should be really cool. So
Awesome. Go.
yeah.
Go. Yeah, that's awesome. And actually, one thing just to share with people is we're now, I think it's a diamond sponsor with Pester and Material UI, which is really cool. I've been using that for the past few years. So yeah, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I was super excited when I saw that we were going to be a sponsor of Pester, because it's such an awesome framework, and I believe it's like literally one person working on it right now. So there, it's really really cool. It makes our lives much easier in the PowerShell space. It gives us a way to test our code natively, which is obviously awesome, because you should be testing all code.
Yeah, if you got we've got some questions. Scott Emberson is asking, can you share the blog link about Pester?
Let me Google it really quick. Let's see.
We've got Cloud of Thrones, which is a great name. So yeah, we've just asking, but yeah, if you could share that, that'd be awesome.
Here, I'm gonna put it in the. Can I comment?
Yeah, it's in. If you share it with me, because I'm the one, I might be able to do it. So if you ping it to me, and I can put it in the comment.
But it's a Dev 2 article.
Right, awesome.
Big fan of Dev 2.
Dude, you know what? I really want to get more into it. My whole thing is like, I'm writing Octopus stuff. I'm writing my own blog. I'm doing some other blogs. It's like, and I don't want to put the same content on like multiple platforms. So I gotta try to find a way to like, maybe my Dev 2 post will be like, hey, check out these blog posts or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Dev 2, they're that's like perfectly fine with them. They I can't remember like the acronym for it or something, but it's like you write it on your main blog, but they have a canonical URL. So basically you can just republish to Dev 2 to get more exposure, to get more people to read it. Nice. And you put the canonical URL in, and all of the SEO or the search goodness like redirects to your original URL. So yeah, I have a few personal blog posts that repost there, but like a lot of the stuff I write for Octopus, we have an organization there. We should link to that too, if we could. And then we republish stuff there as well.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely have to do that. I didn't even realize that was a thing. That's friggin' awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think I found it. So it's just 3rd of July, updated on August 12th. So I've just posted that in there. That's really cool. Unfortunately, we are now getting towards the end of our session today. I've really enjoyed it. This has been a lot of fun. I think that's everything from me. Do you guys have anything else?
I'm good. I've done enough talking for today.
That's impossible, Michael. I don't think I've ever saw you run out of words. But yeah, it's right. So obviously, thank you very much for joining us. Obviously, we are back next week. OctoChats is going to be running the same time every Friday at 3:30 p.m. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining, and I'll see you all next week.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.